Welcome to Geeks, and today is our third installment of the Avatar in the Real World series. In this video, we're going to look at the Water Tribe. The people of the Water Tribe were capable of adapting to change. They used their deep sense of community and love in order to stay together as much as they could. The Water Tribe is based off of Native American cultures, whether you look at particularly the Inuit culture, but you can tell by the advancements of, say, the Northern Water Tribe that you have hints of big Native American civilizations such as the Aztecs or the Incas of South America. One of the most interesting things about the Water Tribe was that similar to the element they bent water. The Water Tribe were people that were constantly innovating, whether it was looking at their own culture or others. There were people that wanted to see change in some shape or form, mostly from the ground up, and they wanted a more centered involvement of change. When you look at the actions of Katara in, say, The Painted Lady, sure, at first she was getting rid of the problems of a local Fire Nation village by masquerading as a spirit, but at the end, when her masquerade was over, she did convince the entire town to clean up its river, but also to be their own sense of inspiration and strength for when times got tough. She also helped inspire an earthbending rebellion at a Fire Nation prison rig, and that's only from just one person. When you look at it from Legend of Korra, with Korra being a waterbender first and foremost, she had the biggest impact on the world in various ways than most avatars did. One of her crowning achievements was her decision to leave the spirit portals open to the entire world, as opposed to locking them up, similar to how Avatar 1, the first ever Avatar, did 10,000 years ago. She was able to follow some of her evil uncle's insight that the human and spirit world shouldn't be separate, but more or less as one. And the Avatar, being the bridge of both worlds, should be able to work simultaneously in them. Sure, he wanted to become a dark avatar, which in and of itself is a route of change, a negative change, but change nonetheless. In which case, the Water Tribes were constantly trying to figure out ways to help improve other people's society, but also their own. When you look at the foundation and creation of the Southern Water Tribe in the South Pole, that was entirely done because many waterbenders living in the Northern Water Tribe was tired of the traditions of that culture. Prime example being how in the Northern Water Tribe, women were not allowed to waterbend, at least in a conventional sense. They were meant to use the waterbending for healing rather than for pure study, and also for combative situations. Something that was rectified in the Southern Water Tribe, even though there was hints of sexism in the Southern Water Tribe, just like there's hints of sexism everywhere in modern day society. The Southern Water Tribe wanted to create a less traditionalist society that allowed everyone the same amount of rights and abilities as they could. Women could use waterbending, men who are not waterbenders could learn the art of hunting, while women could do the same thing as well. In which case, it's this sense of open-mindedness that both Katara and Sokka brought to the Northern Water Tribe. It was through their interactions that led to not only Master Pakku to allow women to learn waterbending, but also showed them that the Southern Water Tribe needed help after suffering a great deal at the hands of the Fire Nation in the 100-Year War, thus leading to a reconstruction of the Southern Water Tribe, but also a way to reestablish connection between the North and South. A connection that looked similar to the fomenting of colonies. As by the time of Legend of Korra, while the Southern Water Tribe was doing better than it did in the 100-Year War, it still had no act of power representation under the control of the Northern Water Tribe. This led to the Water Tribe Civil War. The Southern Water Tribe fought for its own independence while the Northern Water Tribe sought to control it. In the end, while hostilities ran high between the North and the South, after the Southern Water Tribe's victory and its establishment of its own nation, it was able to reconnect ties with the North and thus both of them lived in harmony. And when you add in the Foggy Swamp Water Tribe, which was established about 200 years before the 100-Year War, the Foggy Swamp Tribe were kind of like people living on the Mississippi Bayou. They lived off the land and they had a deep sense of enjoyment. One flaw of the Water Tribe was the fact that they lost contact with each other. If the Water Tribe had established ties with each other and with all three of them, they would have had a more consensus body that would have allowed them to, well, not only progress their culture, but would have helped them during the 100-Year War. As, again, when I get into my 100-Year War video, you would see that when it came to naval supremacy, the Water Tribes were the only ones that could actually take on the Fire Nation Navy. Well, spoiler alert, if you look at it, the Water Tribes kind of were the only ones standing after the fall of Ba Sing Se. That concludes it for the Water Tribe. In our next video, we're going to look at the Fire Nation. How everything changes when you look at the Fire Nation. And we will see you in the future.